Oh my goodness. This is so beautiful. The detail, I just can't even.
What do you think you're doing? Well, didn't we just finalize your shopping budget? Or lack thereof? It's that, the milk expires tomorrow, your car's check engine light has been on for a month, and your gym membership dues come out on Friday. I was gonna give up dairy anyway, and I read online that it's probably just like a loose gas cap. It would actually cost me more money to cancel my membership than to just take like a teeny tiny break from the gym. Teeny tiny little break. You don't even know where your tennis shoes are. Okay, now you're just being mean. This conversation is over. Oh my gosh, that is so cute. You're gonna buy that, right? Because that would totally look cute on us.
Oh, you think I could pull it off?
Girl, you would totally rock that. Question, do you remember the last time you listened to Miss You Only Live Once? Okay, first of all, it's YOLO. B, that was the most epic weekend ever. Yeah, because emergency rooms are so epic. Okay, listen, I've thought about this. It's never been this cheap. It's a limited edition. It's on a 3-hour flash sale, and I get a free gift with purchase. Why are you still talking? Buy it. Oh no, if you buy that today, you will have zero margin until your next paycheck.
Oh, but if you don't buy it today, you run the risk of turning out like her.
Responsible and debt-free? Oh, do you remember that account with $1,000 in it?
You mean the emergency fund?
Oh, so we're like naming our accounts now? Okay, call it whatever you want. That money is for emergencies. Exactly. How is this not an emergency, all right? You have earned that money, and you should spend it on all the emergencies you want. Okay, what is the point of a budget if you don't stick to it? Okay, Miss CFO, finances are not that black and white, all right? There's a lot of gray area in online shopping math, all right? For instance, if you spend $35 more, you get free shipping. Okay, shipping is $10. It's like terrible math. No, it's online shopping math. Or you could use your no-interest credit card. Wait, what? What? No-interest credit card, okay? We just paid off all our credit cards. What credit card are you even talking about? Oh, only this beautiful, shiny new card with our name on it, interest-free for 18 months. That's like 2 whole pregnancies. Listen, if you don't have the money now, what makes you think you're gonna have the money later? Ugh, you are such a pessimist. Look, you could buy 2 and sell the other one for double what you paid. Oh, and with the 2% cash back, we'll actually come out ahead. Okay, we're practically making money here. Okay, I give up. It is pretty cute. Wait a second. That's not even your size! But it will be!
Oh goodness, have I ever been there, with a good Sandra over here saying money doesn't grow on trees, and the other Sandra over here saying, oh, but it's such a special occasion, you should. Luckily, the good Sandra usually wins because I finally figured out that life is just better with breathing room, with the peace of having some margin in our time, our finances, and our relationships. And this is true whether you're a God follower or not. But as we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, breathing room is a spiritual issue too. This week, we're going to look at why and how we should create breathing room in our finances. And spoiler alert, God wants us to create breathing room in our finances so we can follow Him instead of being slave to the credit card company, mortgage lender, or even to a high-paying job. On either side of breathing room is a choice. Will I let my fears push me right up to or maybe even over my limits? Or will I live with breathing room and trust God to fill in the gap? Nowhere is this choice easier to see than in our finances. I suspect this is why Jesus had so much to say about money. He knew that money is the most powerful tool we'll ever have for learning to trust our Heavenly Father. Today, we're going to look at a couple things Jesus said about money. But in everything he said on the subject, and there was a lot, he made it really clear that God cares more about your quality of life than your standard of living. Maybe you've never thought about the difference between those two before. In fact, every day, in every advertisement we see, we're told they're the same. That if we drive a better car, if we take fancier vacations or wear more stylish clothes, our lives will be better. We're constantly told that if we raise our standard of living, we raise our quality of life. But these two are not the same. And some of us have learned that the hard way. Maybe you or your husband accepted a job promotion because the pay raise was just too good to pass up. But now the increased responsibility means longer hours at work and less time with your family. Your standard of living may have increased, but your quality of life has taken a hit. Or maybe you've talked yourself into a big purchase thinking it would increase your quality of life, only to find out the opposite is true. Like buying a newer, roomier car only to realize the monthly payment is quickly draining your savings account. You traded your peace for a purchase. Ladies, standard of living and quality of life are not the same. And distinguishing between the two is the key to living with financial breathing room. You can raise your standard of living with debt, but you can only raise your quality of life with discipline. One brings anxiety and stress and turmoil. The other brings joy and peace and freedom. That makes the choice pretty easy, doesn't it? Jesus explains the tension between these two things in Luke chapter 16. This chapter begins with a parable about a money manager who gets fired. But I want to look at two things Jesus said right after the parable when he was making sure the people in the crowd understood the point he was trying to make with the story. Luke 16:13 says, "No one can serve two masters. Either you will love one and hate the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other." You may have experienced this principle maybe in a job where you reported to two different bosses, or perhaps your parents were divorced and you had different rules and routines depending on which parent you were with. Jesus is saying here, there's always a tension when you're accountable to two different people. And once Jesus had everybody nodding their heads in agreement that it is hard to serve two masters, he applied it back to finances, saying in the same verse, you cannot serve both God and money. God and money may not sound like the opposing masters you would expect Jesus to mention, but really it's the choice between standard of living, which comes from spending money, and quality of life, which comes from following God. And he's saying in this verse, you can't serve both. You may be thinking, I would never pick money over God. I'm not that selfish. I don't love my stuff that much. But it's not unusual to wind up in situations where you really are torn between those two. God may be calling you to move to a new city, but if you're upside down in your mortgage and can't sell your house, you're not free to follow him. He may be nudging you to adopt, but if you've spent instead of saved and can't afford the cost, you're not free to follow him. Or maybe you feel like it's time to leave your job, but your family can't afford to lose your salary because you're currently spending every dollar that comes in. Here's the thing. Your standard of living may cost you the chance to have your very best quality of life. And it's going to break your heart when the bottom line of your bank account keeps you from being able to say yes to what God is calling you to do. And that's why you need financial breathing room. Managing your money with margin, with breathing room, gives you the freedom to follow God right into the very best version of your life. You can be generous. You can serve others. You can say yes when he says go. A couple weeks ago, I told you about a season of life when we were starting North Point Community Church, and our family was out of breathing room in our time. Let me back up a few months in that story. Andy was working at a church, but we started to sense that God was asking him to leave and start something new. Now, at this point, we had 2 boys in diapers, and I was pregnant with our daughter. So leaving his job would mean walking away from medical insurance just as I was about to have a baby. And starting a brand new church would mean going without a paycheck for months. We faced exactly the situation that we're talking about today, being able to serve God or being forced to serve money. Thankfully, Andy and I had both learned some wise financial principles from our parents. We had budgeted, we had saved, and we weren't spending every single dollar that we made. We had created enough financial breathing room that we were able to say yes to God's call. And there was certainly still some stress around money with 3 little ones to feed and clothe, but I'm so grateful we were financially free to follow God. We could have missed out on one of the greatest blessings of our lives, and I want the same thing for you. So how do we get there? How do we make sure we're ready to serve God instead of being forced to serve money? I've found that having a filter to run decisions through can be so helpful when we're starting to run out of breathing room. The filter for our finances is remembering that I want is better than I owe. I owe means that you're serving money. You've spent your way into slavery. If God nudged you to do something, you'd have to check with Visa or American Express first. I want means you may desire the big house your sister is buying or the international trip your friend is taking, but you're serving God by living with breathing room in your bank account instead. And you might be surprised to find that choosing breathing room now gives you the freedom to do some of those extra things more easily later. If you're tracking along in the book, we'll spend some time this week looking at the details of where you're spending your money, because it's one thing to embrace this idea up here, but really putting it into practice is going to require some practical changes. Remember, living with breathing room is a choice to trust God. It's trusting that He will bring along another opportunity, or, as I've often found with God, He'll bring along an even better one. And hopefully, because you've committed to living with breathing room, you will have the financial freedom to say yes to His incredible plans for your life.